Hey everyone, geophysicist Stefan Burns here. Breaking news, we finally have visual confirmation of interstellar object 3I Atlas since its closest approach to Mars. Now, shortly after that close approach to Mars, back around October 3rd, the European Space Agency released the imagery that they got from their different probes orbiting around the red planet. And that confirmed that 3I Atlas was in the position that we expected, and it didn't perform any sort of O-berth maneuver using the gravitational assist from Mars. But then things have gone completely dark, you could say, as it relates to 3I Atlas, because in fact it's been blinded by the light of the sun. It's been basically impossible to observe 3I Atlas because of the strong glare, it passing behind the sun. It did that superior conjunction as viewed from Earth on October 21st. And well, I was talking about how we may be able to see 3I Atlas in our coronagraph imagery, which allows us to see the solar wind flowing around the sun and any solar storms that launch. We've had 3 big coronal mass ejections launched from the far side of the sun towards 3I Atlas based on its expected orbital trajectory and its vector of direction. And well, it turns out we can barely spot 3I Atlas in the coronagraph imagery. And so we have confirmation that 3I Atlas is still in the expected position based off of its ephemeris data and all the astronomical observations that were made of it back in July, August, and September. So as of right now, it's behaving totally normal as it relates to its movement through the solar system based off of its speed and its trajectory. It's going to accelerate to a maximum of 68 kilometers per second for its perihelion, its closest approach to the sun on October 29th. So this interstellar object, as of this moment in time, is accelerating to its maximum speed. If it is any sort of unique, maybe alien or technological craft, and it wanted to do an orbital trajectory change, that is when we'd expect it to perform an O-berth maneuver. I personally do not think that is likely. I don't think it's an alien craft or technology. I think it's a very unique interstellar object that's interacting with our solar system in energetic ways. We saw 3 big coronal mass ejections launch back to back to back directly to 3I Atlas. So it is short-circuiting the sun due to its close proximity, due to its large size. That is the bigger story here. And those sunspot groups, we don't know what's been happening with them. We had some large sunspots on the Earth-facing side, which are now the ones responsible on the far side that are blasting 3I Atlas with all this energy. If they rotate back to Earth facing, they could be quite large if they don't die out. And their alignment with Earth facing direct is going to be right around the supermoon, the biggest and brightest full moon of the year. So November 5th, November 6th is looking quite dynamic, and perhaps 3I Atlas is fueling the growth of those sunspots because we've seen 3 big coronal mass ejections from the far side now, and we may get that to continue. Here we have our CC01 coronagraph view of the sun from the GOES-19 satellite in geostationary orbit. And we use these sort of coronagraphs to see what's happening with the sun in terms of solar wind outflows and solar storm launches. It's a space weather forecasting tool. You'll see the stars in the background. See these fixed points of light? Those are the background stars. They are moving because this is fixed on the sun and we're rotating around the sun. This red circle is put around 3I Atlas. This news, this observation of 3I Atlas in the GOES-19 CCOR1 view was first put out by amateur astronomer Worchate Boomplod. He's from Thailand. He's discovered a bunch of comets in coronagraph imagery across the years, and he took the raw data and processed it and found 3I Atlas in its expected location back on the 18th, 19th of October. And once I saw that, I went ahead and downloaded the past 7 days, and I was able to locate 3I Atlas specifically on the edges of the coronagraph. We see the zoomed in view there. It's very faint. I was super punched in Premiere Pro and tracking this thing, but you will notice that it is moving faster than the normal retrograde motion of the stars because 3I Atlas is also moving retrograde. So it's moving the direction of the night sky as viewed from Earth, but it's moving at its own velocity about 66, 67 kilometers per second right now. Again, it's perihelion, will be 68 kilometers per second at the end of October. And then we see it picked up again here. So this fits right in line with where we expect 3i Atlas to be based off of its orbital trajectory and just all the positional data that we have for it. And we see this very faint object show up in the CCR1 coronagraph. Its magnitude, its apparent magnitude is about 11 or 10. So it's quite faint, but it is bright enough to pick up on the coronagraph. So I was talking about this possibility in some videos and live streams earlier on. I didn't think it was a high likelihood. I'm glad that I was wrong because here it is. And this allows us to confirm that as of right now, everything is proceeding normally with 3i Atlas as it relates to its orbital maneuvering. It's not undergoing any sort of significant acceleration or deceleration or changing its trajectory. There's a bunch of misinformation out there on that. If you look, people say that it's now heading towards the Earth or doing this big maneuver change. There's no evidence of that. This coronagraph imagery effectively dispels all of that. What's more interesting in my mind are these huge coronal mass ejections that you see the sun has launched during this pretty close approach of 3i Atlas and that exact alignment with the Earth, the Moon, the Sun, and 3i Atlas, the superior conjunction on the 21st of October. So we'll watch this coronagraph repeat and you'll see that things are fairly quiet and calm. Then we had these sunspots start to rotate to the far side. They're on the limb. You can see that they're pumping out quite a bit every now and then, but then we get this really big coronal mass ejection on the 21st. You'll see the moon swing in here. Right now it's the 20th. It's all universal time. So see how they're really starting to pump out plasma now? Look at that. It's getting bigger and bigger. We see the moon swing in for the new moon. There it is. And check out this gigantic coronal mass ejection that launches right after this. Boom shakalaka. That is a big coronal mass ejection. One of the largest of this solar cycle. About 24 hours later, we get another big coronal mass ejection. Right there, boom shakalaka, and then again another 24 hours later, we get a third big coronal mass ejection right there. We may get a fourth one, but notice that 3i Atlas at that time was nearly in perfect alignment with the sun as viewed from Earth, and it's getting closer and closer to the sun, its perihelion being about 1.36 astronomical units away from the sun. 1 AU for reference is the distance from the Earth to the sun on average. So it's quite close, it's quite large. The minimum size estimate seems to have coalesced around 5 kilometers. The maximum diameter for 3i Atlas we expect is about 50 kilometers, much larger than Oumuamua and Borisov, the first two interstellar objects picked up in 2017, 2019. And we also saw similar activity with Oumuamua in 2017. Its perihelion was September 9th. We saw two big double-digit X-class flares, the strongest of solar cycle 24, bounded on each side of that perihelion, and we had the biggest earthquake of 2017 the day before the perihelion in Oumuamua. And we're seeing this play out again just as we started to forecast going all the way back to July and August here on the channel. We expected big solar activity around this critical time window of the superior conjunction through perihelion, and well, we got it. Now, those of you who watch my channel know my position on 3i Atlas, but there seems to be a really strong polarization of opinion as to what the heck this thing is. On one side, people are like, it's 100% a comet, and on the other side, people are saying it's 100% aliens that they're coming to invade. Meanwhile, I'm like, it's an interstellar object because it has a lot of characteristics that do not match up with normal cometary behavior. It's the third ever interstellar object observed. We don't know from what sort of system it's from or how long it's been traveling deep space. It could be billions of years. And so it has a very unique makeup and energy to it that is quite a bit different than that of our solar system. So I don't think you can just put the label of comet on it. And I personally don't think it's aliens, though it provides a useful exercise to go through, like, well, okay, what should we do if it is aliens? And we should track this thing very closely. We shouldn't be just kicking back and relaxing. We should be very alert and active and aware as to what is happening with this. It provides a wonderful research opportunity to see what we should expect and to learn about the early origin and formation of the universe, or perhaps our local interstellar cluster or more. Well, here we have data showing the evolution of 3i Atlas, and At the beginning, July 2nd, you see that top left corner, we see its nucleus and coma. The brightest pixel is represented by that red dot, and you see those streaks. Basically, they stacked a composite of images and the stars streak out because they centered 3i Atlas in those images. And you see that it has a little bit of a sunward facing tail. So there's a bit of a push in the coma facing the sun, and it maintained that until about August. So we see that there's a bit more of its coma pushing towards the sun in July, and then in August and September, it started to form a tail, but it's nothing like the tail that we've been seeing from comets like C2025 A6 Lemon, which right now is putting on a fantastic show for astronomers around the world, and it is visible right now in the night sky. So you can go out there, if you have good skies in the evening, northern hemisphere, you may be able to see A6 Lemon with your bare eyes, though I would definitely bring a pair of binoculars to get a better sense, or even a telescope if you have one. But it's certainly not displaying a lot of the normal characteristics of a comet from our solar system, or what we hypothesize being the Oort cloud surrounding our solar system. Has the deepest negative polarization curve ever observed, has a very odd nickel to iron ratio, has a whole bunch of anomalies to it. I've explained it many times on the channel. So it's a completely unique thing. We don't know what it is. We don't know its density. We have a little bit of information on its chemical composition, but a lot of data has yet to be released from NASA, ESA, and other agencies, specifically from its close flyby of Mars. We were supposed to get a bunch of data from that. Well, it hasn't been publicly released. That's a good question to ask. Instead, they have put out an alert with the International Asteroid Warning Network to observe 3i Atlas from November to December for amateur astronomers and professionals alike to do so. That's a little strange and bizarre. So the good thing though about this footage from the CCOR1 coronagraph is that it confirms it is still along its normal orbital trajectory that we have calculated based off of the astronomical observations that we made of it from its initial discovery July 1st all the way up to when we lost sight of it around October 3rd. Now, a quick space weather update for you is that there has been some Earth-facing solar activity that appears to result in space weather headed our way. There have been some plasma filaments that have destabilized. NOAA has modeled some of them. We see this sweeping by the Earth, a flank impact around the 27th, 28th of October. So looks like we're going to go into unsettled and active geomagnetic conditions as a result of that. There's been a tremendous amount of activity on the far side launched towards 3i Atlas, really specifically towards Venus. The two of them both kind of near each other at this moment in time. And what's interesting about that is we're going to have this more disturbed geomagnetic activity going into the perihelion of 3i Atlas, and then each day that goes forward, those sunspots, which have been blasting off huge coronal mass ejections, will rotate closer and closer back to Earth facing. And now they could kind of, disappear and go away. They could maintain where they are. They could get bigger and stronger, but they've been very active. So we could have some monster sunspots rotating into view around the perihelion of 3i Atlas and in early November. And then if that is the case, they will be basically lining up Earth-centered direct bullseye around the biggest supermoon of the year. And that's important because this is a full moon. So not only is this a supermoon where the moon is closest to Earth in its orbit as perigee, this is a full moon, and full moons are positioned behind the Earth. So you have a Sun-Earth-Moon alignment, meaning that the moon is in Earth's magnetic field in the magnetotail, and that in general creates greater geomagnetic disturbances. Not by a huge amount, but significantly, because this is big object that has a electric field difference from its sunlit side and its dark side moving through the plasmasphere of the Earth. And so with a supermoon, you get stronger tides. The moon is just closer to the Earth. It's reflecting more light to the surface. It's about 8% larger in apparent size and about 12% brighter. This one will be. And it's going to be nearly exactly as perigee. A supermoon is considered one when it's within 90% of its perigee. This one's at 99.7%, so it's nearly a perfect supermoon, meaning it'll be about 357,000 kilometers away from the Earth, and its apogee, for example, for the moon could be all the way out 420,000 kilometers or so. So it's going to be very close, very bright, very strong gravitationally, interacting with the plastosphere of the Earth, effectively priming the Earth for greater geomagnetic activity, and we could have some supercharged sunspots right in that Earth-facing direct zone after 3I Atlas short-circuited them, because that is what it appears to be. We had 3I Atlas perform that superior conjunction. Right as it did so, we had tons of solar activity, clearly some sort of electromagnetic circuit change, causing these sunspots to really start to pump out and flare and explode. And that may continue forward into early November. And that's not all. This supermoon is also nearly conjunct the planet of disruption, Uranus. Now, to show you why I think that, we're going to look at the astronomical software Stellarium, which allows us to track the position of the planets, the moon, the stars, and more in real time, and also going forward, going back. So here we see the constellations. I have the ecliptic plane denoted there, and this is during the exact moment of the full supermoon at its absolute brightest and at perigee. That is at 8:19 a.m. Eastern Time, United States, on the 5th of November. So the full moon will be a little bit better for those, for example, on the West Coast or Hawaii. That's when it goes perfectly exact. But if you go back a few hours here, we'll see that if you wake up early in the morning, you're going to definitely get a treat with the supermoon. And we see it there in the constellation of Aries, but moving into Taurus. And so we go forward one day. Now we see it there very clearly in the constellation of Taurus, getting close to the Pleiades. So on the 6th, it's going to pass by the Pleiades, and that will be a very strong energetic influence. And then it will pass by Uranus. So we go forward to the next night here, and we will see that the moon will be very close to the planet Uranus, which is right now positioned in this constellation of Taurus. So we can specifically go here, and we can search for Uranus, and it'll pop up. Sometimes it pops up on its own. So it looks like you're actually already passed over Uranus at this moment in time. And Uranus is known as the planet of sudden change and disruption. And in the constellation of Taurus, Taurus linked to the Earth. It is technically fixed Earth. That's very much a signature of there being greater changes and disruption to the Earth itself. And well, the full supermoon coming in, it's an agent of manifestation. And it's the biggest moon that we'll have of the year. And it's coming in during all this solar activity and close to the perihelion of 3I Atlas. So I expect this full supermoon, just based off of that, there's other things too, but just based off of that, to be very dynamic. And we've been in a little bit of an earthquake drought. Perhaps that changes before the supermoon, but we haven't had any magnitude 6 or greater earthquakes for a few days now. Let's check it out. Here we have our USGS latest earthquakes map, and we can see what's been happening on a global scale seismically. We see that we just had a magnitude 5.1 hit near Guam. And so that's a pretty big shaker. If it actually hit the island, it got fairly close by, so probably not too many people felt that. A 5.8 went near Japan. So certainly some of these villages there along the coast felt that 5.8. And then if we sort this by highest magnitude, we see in fact it is that 5.8 from Japan. This is for the past 24 hours. Let's change this to the past 7 days, okay? And we will see that we haven't really had any magnitude 6 earthquakes. We had this 5.9 here, Costa Rica, but it's been a week plus now where we haven't had a magnitude 6 earthquake. And usually they occur a little bit more frequently than this. So when you have earthquake activity drop back down below magnitude 6 for a while, what you usually see is it then spikes up later with quite some significant earthquakes like magnitude 6.5, magnitude 7, magnitude 7.5 and greater. And so we saw with the perihelion of Oumuamua, the biggest earthquake of 2017. We've been tracking the space weather, connecting it to global seismic trends, using it to accurately forecast some of the biggest earthquakes of 2025. For example, the megaquake was forecasted 3 days in advance here on the channel, some other earthquakes. A lot of interesting trends I'm not going to get into. You can go through my backlog or subscribe and you'll stay up to date with it. when I cover in the next video. But in general, I'd say that we should just be alert for high magnitude earthquakes for about the next 2 weeks, because this is the energetic influence that's active with 3I Atlas, with these big sunspots doing big explosions on the sun. We have had some increased proton radiation come in as a result of that here on Earth. Effectively, the entire solar system has been hit with more relativistic ion flux as a result of these explosions, and there could be more. And the Earth is a very alive, dynamic system. So it's all connected together. You have to remember that. And so a question a lot of you may have would be, how is it that 3I Atlas, this interstellar object, which is at maximum probably 50 kilometers across, no more than that, how is it that it could trigger solar activity? I mean, we could see how if something was launched from the sun towards it, how that impacting 3I Atlas could alter its behavior in terms of its coma and the plasma and its tail and everything. But how does the reverse work? And so I think you have to look at this from an electromagnetic perspective, not a gravitational one, because the gravity of 3I Atlas is going to be very, very minor as compared to the sun and the overall gravitational field of the inner solar system, because again, it's quite tiny. But electromagnetism is 10 to 36 times more powerful than gravity if you measure it certain ways. So that's way more significant than gravity. So it has this complex dusty plasma coma surrounding it, which is very electromagnetically active. And therefore, if it's going through the inner solar system where typically there isn't any activity and the electric field gradient is normal, the magnetic field is fairly normal, it flying through is going to effectively create a short circuit in the normal circuit dynamics, the electric circuit dynamics of the inner solar system, and even going out to the outer solar system. So I think you can look at this from an electromagnetic standpoint to help you understand how something like 3I Atlas and other comets and interstellar objects can short circuit the sun. And you can read into the work of Hans Alvin, and there's also the whole Electric Universe group that talks about this quite a bit. A lot of amazing resources out there to explore this world of electromagnetism in space, which is the dominant force. Gravity is important, electromagnetism is the dominant force. But I also think we can go beyond that and simply just speak about resonance. You have the solar system, the planets, the sun, trans-Newtonian dwarf objects and asteroids, all this, but it is a known system. They've all been working together for, we think, millions, billions of years, okay? So there's really not too many outside unknown factors. Doesn't mean it's not dynamic, but everything kind of knows each other. You have some object come in from perhaps like 1 million light years away. We don't know how long it's been traveling for. We know the speed right now, about 68 kilometers per second as fastest, but it could have been traveling for billions of years. We don't know if it's like a primordial chunk of an early, like the early universe, or what its makeup exactly is. It is completely unique. You have to keep that in mind. We don't know what it is. And so it carries a very unique resonance to it. Its frequency, its vibration, its energy, its information field. Information is everywhere in the universe. It's not just energy and energy, information, consciousness. That resonance is so different than our solar system that just from that perspective, you can kind of let go of the science and expand into a greater understanding of how things work together at this informational and conscious level. So I think that also is a good explanation for it, though it's certainly woefully incomplete in terms of it being like detailed and analytical, but I think it's more holistic and encompassing and of all the truth that does exist in reality of this interaction than a limited, narrow scientific viewpoint. So there's, of course, a bunch of stuff that we don't understand that we like to understand, but you have to just kind of let go a little bit, expand into that. And if you look at it from a resonance perspective, it makes sense that it is going to trigger a lot of solar activity and perhaps other changes in our solar system here on Earth. Earthquake activity, for example, that is very possible. Changes in consciousness because it's interacting at a completely different dimension of reality. So that's the latest update on 3I Atlas, our space weather and earthquake activity here on Earth. If you liked the video, please smash that like button, help the channel grow. We're on the road to 1 million now, which is incredible. So join in before we blast past that. We are on a rocket ship, beyond the solar system, not to the moon, not to Mars, but way out there, just like 3i Atlas. I've been your host, Stefan Burns. Thank you all so much for watching. You can pick up some official channel merch and also a whole bunch of holistic wellness products at earthevolution.com/store. Check that out. The products are linked below the video description on the YouTube app. And so wishing each and every single one of you well. Please take care of yourselves. It's a very energetically active time at this moment. So make sure you rest, recharge, renew, and we'll go into not only the perihelion of 3i Atlas on the 29th of October, but Halloween, and then into November and December with a lot of vigor and gusto. So thanks so much. Have a great day, and I'll see you all in the next video.